So the topic I'm going to talk about in this content is do my best to try to answer the question, is SaaS dead? That's what keeps coming up because of how capable AI is these days. The big question is how significant is the disruption going to be to SaaS and the industry in general? So I want to dive into that topic further. Now, my experience is such that I've been around long enough, way before AI. Carbon dating myself there a little bit, but I've built full stack. I've done full stack development work on SaaS applications, turning those into businesses, mostly myself, especially with the earlier versions, all the way to and through nowadays where I'm leveraging AI significantly to write the vast majority of the code, like 90+%. Then I'm just kind of like architecting the pieces together, picking out the tech stack, whatever. Is I'm just in a different position. I'm leveraging the technologies to the full extent of their capabilities at the moment. So given that range and my history and experience, I can talk a little bit about where I think we've been, where I think we are now, and where I think the industry is going to try to help better answer this question. So, um, my short answer to the question, is SaaS dead? Is no, at least not yet. And what I mean by that is the opportunity, I think, now is probably greater than ever, actually, to invest in building a SaaS application. I'm going to get into that a little bit more detail now, but because the tools are relatively cost effective and they're so capable, if you've got some experience here, you can make a significant amount of progress for any number of reasons. And I think you should be focusing on that, as well as I think there's sense of urgency here. And I'm going to talk about that more too. So, what may be intuitive, or one of the concerns that I keep hearing about, and I think about it myself on the regular basis now, is why build any applications at all? Because for the most part, people can just use AI for everything, right? I understand where you're coming from there, and I think about that a lot. However, having done a lot of work in product and product management, also product strategy, that has taken me down the route of trying to better understand human psychology and why people decide to use which products they do or don't. That has opened up some really interesting things about just kind of how people operate. So, what I want to, rather than dive down that rabbit hole, the punchline there essentially is there's a lot more to this than just the tech being capable enough. People need to change their behaviors, and behavior change is difficult, especially as we're talking about bigger operations or larger groups of people or folks that maybe not are not as tech savvy or as familiar with what the latest technology is capable of as people like you and I. So there's all that. Plus, there's the trust factor or the trust problem in AI. There isn't really a great deal of trust around the technology, I would say, at the moment, and also for largely good reasons, right? Because we see AI also still making a lot of mistakes. So until that is performing consistently, and I mean the technology itself, but it underlying is it's non-deterministic, which essentially means you can ask the same question with the same data set over and over again and get a different answer every time. Just kind of like if you ask different people, you get different answers kind of thing. So for those reasons, I think what that means to me is there's a significant opportunity for SaaS to kind of have a mini resurgence or a mini renaissance as part of where, the tech currently is and where people like you and I may be that can capitalize on what it's capable of, as well as, the industry adoption and what that actually looks like in practice, which isn't as widespread as most people might think. So I think all of those things speak to there's more opportunity in SaaS now than most people realize. The other thing I wanted to mention, there's a bit of a sense of urgency here. So while I think there's a ton of opportunity, the AI technology does continue to evolve borderline exponentially at the moment. Now, I think it's plateauing a little bit, but it does continue to get better. Some folks have kind of tested it earlier on and it wasn't great, and they've kind of ignored it since. I think that's a big mistake. When they come back to it, and they inevitably will, they'll probably be pretty impressed with how much progress it's made. So there may be a limited window in terms of whatever it is you're thinking of value proposition wise to create a SaaS product and turn that into a business. The other concern may be, well, and this is what I've heard a lot as well too, is there's no moat, right? Because if you can build it quickly and easily, then so can anybody else, or people can just go right to AI and use that. I mentioned already why I don't think that that's happening, and the data seems to reflect that now at the moment as well too. But I think people need to think differently about moats, like unlike they did before, which is the faster you move and the more penetration you get in your market sooner rather than later, that kind of becomes your moat. You become a relatively trusted option and key option for solving whatever problem your target market has. So the punchline here is I think there's a limited window to kind of capitalize on whatever it is you want to build. I think the opportunities are going to continue to be there, but you're going to have to innovate further and further as this kind of technology life cycle and adoption curve continues to accelerate. So wanted to mention that as well too, because there's a sense of urgency here for sure. Okay, so to recap, basically, do I think SaaS is dead or dying? Short answer, no. In fact, I think if anything, we're likely to see a bit of a resurgence, and I think that opportunity presents itself now more than ever for people like you and I to capitalize on that and help more people than we have before, even faster than we've been able to before. And that speaks to, I think, a window of opportunity right now, where the balance of currently the level of cost effectiveness of these tools, which is remarkable. They're crazy, crazy efficient, and the costs for what you get are relatively low. Plus, the capabilities are very impressive and getting better each day. And especially if you've got some background in knowing how to leverage those technologies and these tools to actually build something the right way, if you're in the right sweet spot, then the opportunity now is better than it's ever been in order for you to be successful in SaaS. So please don't get discouraged, because now I think is the opportunity to capitalize on. And then in terms of the moat and defensibility and all that kind of good stuff, people are unlikely to use AI for everything. I'm finding that out across industries. So chances are there is a combination of variables you're considering when it comes to your SaaS product or the business you want to build, where you can absolutely still build a SaaS product that could be super successful, maybe more so now than ever. So don't get discouraged by that either. And then in terms of how to apply what I'm talking about here, first and foremost, it's a reshuffling of your priorities potentially, right? Take a look at what you've been focused on most recently or are doing today. And if it isn't helping you make progress faster than you've ever been able to before, as in like, and this has been my experience, I'm so shocked by how quickly I can move relative to the previous generation of tools that I had access to that almost I don't believe it, and I'm doing it. So if you're not having those type of experiences yourself as well too, chances are you're probably moving too slow. And what that likely means is you're just not prioritizing in the right way. So take a closer look at those and make sure that you are not slowing yourself down deliberately, but instead continuing to make dramatic progress much faster than was even possible before, largely powered by these technologies. And in terms of providing any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. So I'd recommend you subscribe to this if you want to see more of this type of content, and please share some feedback via the comment mechanism as well too, if you don't mind.